welcome to all of you and to our audience, our listeners, our viewers. We are thrilled to be here together to have the next episode in the IDIA and Villgro podcast miniseries focused on inclusion and gender equality and economic opportunity. So my name is Kippy Joseph, and I'm a senior fellow at Results for Development, and I am a partner in the IDIA network. And I really look forward to having this conversation with all of you because what we're here today to talk about is the opportunity that presents itself as we navigate a global backlash against gender equality. And just to set the stage, let me say one thing about that backlash. It's not something that I am proffering as an opinion. It is not something only that we necessarily share as a group of 4 people. It is something that has been articulated by the UN Secretary General. In fact, his words were a fierce backlash against gender equality. And that's the context we find ourselves in. So I'd love it if we could just start by talking a little bit about the roles that we're playing in the room today and what we're bringing to the conversation in terms of perspectives and points of view. So again, I'm Kippy Joseph, and maybe we'll just start with our introductions.
Well, thank you so much, Kippy, for your time to have this conversation. My name is Royford Mutegi. I'm the co-founder and the managing director of the Vermi-Farm initiative. And for us, we empower smallholder farmers with a reliable climate-resilient incomes. And also we focus on women and youth who earn less than $2 a day. And I think the inspiration is drawn from my growing up from a women-led family, where at some point we really struggled because access to basic needs was quite a struggle. And I witnessed at first hand the challenges women faced, whereby weather used to dictate if my community is going to harvest or not. And when I became the first boy to get to the university, I sat down with a team and we designed the solutions that can work for the smallholder farmers like my mother.
Well, I'm Katie. I am Senior Strategic Initiatives Lead at Value for Women. And essentially what we do is look at women's economic empowerment via the private sector in emerging markets. So working with businesses, investors, DFIs, financial institutions to create more and better opportunities for women, whether that's access to finance for women entrepreneurs and women-led businesses, creating more and better jobs that are actually accessible, safe, dignified, sustainable for women, and enabling women and women entrepreneurs to access products and services that they need in their life or to help them and their businesses grow and thrive.
Thank you.
Awesome. My name is Snider, Mugese. I'm part of the Villgro Africa team. Villgro Africa has been in this space, the healthcare innovation and startup support space, for about 10 years. But we've also, over the years, noticed that a lot of the calls we put out, women are not represented. And so the question was, a few years back, like 3 years ago, we decided to ask ourselves, are women actually doing any work in healthcare? And if they are, where are they? And so my experience at Villgro has really just been trying to make sure that there's inclusivity in healthcare innovation and in how we are supporting entrepreneurs, because we ended up discovering that there are actually women doing a lot of incredible work in healthcare. And we just needed to take a bit about what we are doing, how we are reaching out to them, our support, our criteria, the language that we use even when we're putting out these calls, because it led to self-disqualification. And a lot of things that we really learned that we weren't doing right previously as we were trying to attract these innovators. So hoping to really add that to their conversation today.
Great. What's at stake here when we talk about women's economic empowerment? How are we able to navigate against this backlash while still looking at the opportunity that presents itself for women to benefit from market creation and products and services that meet needs here on the continent? So I'm not sure, maybe Katie, you want to take that question and answer it as you see fit?
Yeah, I guess, from my perspective, I think what we're seeing in the big picture is the shrinking of the traditional grant funding space, like ODA. A lot of cuts there and more of a shift towards interest in like market-based approaches. And while that presents many significant challenges for women's rights and inclusion globally, I think from where I sit at Value for Women, there is also like an interesting opportunity angle to explore, in that women continue to be underrepresented across business and investment, and that's despite there being a large catalogue of evidence that when women and other marginalised populations are meaningfully included, it often generates better business returns and returns on investment as well. So I'd like us to not only focus on those challenges, but also explore the kind of opportunities and examples maybe of what's working from that angle as well. That's where I see the kind of green shoots of hope.
But also, I can support you on that. And to also add to that is we really need to think about the criteria that we use when we are looking for investment opportunities, especially in women-owned and led businesses. From my experience, a lot of venture capital would come and give you a criteria of, hey, I want to see how you can expand into 5 markets. I want to see that you have revenues of about 500,000. Guess what? A lot of the women-owned enterprises that I have dealt with are not at $500,000 kind of revenues, but they've broken even. And that is rare when you come with a mindset of unicorn. You said it very well. It's an informal. It's mostly our economy as Africa is led by SMEs. And so we really need to look inside and say, hey, we do have a small pot of funding, but how can we maximize for businesses that have positive unit economics? And I'll give you an example of the cohort that we have right now for women-owned SMEs, or rather startups in healthcare.
At Villgro.
All of them have positive unit economics. But if a VC were to come in, they'll be like, hey, Snider, is any of your startups doing revenues of above 500,000? I'm like, no, they're not. But they are doing great things, and they have employed more than 20 people, even for some of them. And so we really need to rethink the lens so that we are spreading the small pot that we have across businesses that actually have positive unit economics.
Can you first tell us a little bit more about the organization's mission? And can you tell us about the impact of Vermi-Farm, specifically from a narrative lens? Is there the story of a farmer or a woman that you can share with us so we can start to picture how it is that you are making your mark?
I always talk about my mother because she has been the inspiration we are bringing to life the Vermi-Farm. Let me give a case in context in Kenya.
Wonderful.
Women, they do produce over 70% of the food that we consume as a country. But then at the end of the day, they are the least served with timely access to information around weather. They're the least served with reliable financial tools to fall back to in case of climate shocks. I would say less than 1% of the smallholder farmers in Kenya right now have access to insurance, right? Yeah. Yes, because they are too risky to lend. Some even micro lenders, they charge them exploitative interest rates. So for us, we needed to have a way we can help them to come out of, to have a way they can be able to generate consistent incomes from their farming, because it's farming, but then it should be a business that can be able to sustain themselves, and they can also be able to save even something for medical insurance, to pay school fees, something that my mother used to struggle with. And one of the things to help them, one of the things that we did is to devise a microclimate environment for crop production. We call it Vermi-Farm Digishamba. It's just a small greenhouse, a modular greenhouse of 8 meter by 30 meter. And smallholder farmers, they're able to produce food all year round, but then we ensure they produce high-value crops that we are able to support them to access the international markets. And then The other way, we came up with a village bank. It's a model whereby we are trying to pull funds from the community and ensures that the smallholder farmers are able to access timely and accessible finance without travel to the banks, because you realize she might travel to the bank, but then at the end of the day, she don't have a collateral security, and she's not able to access the loans. So for us, we're ensuring that these services, they can get them from the village level. So what we're trying to do is to ensure we get them into organized groups, and then we have they function like a bank branch. And now the members, they serve as the tellers within the branch. So they have access to microloans, weather indexed insurance, and they have access to digital payments. And right now we are trying to work with different players within the value chain so that we can ensure the financing, our product is inclusive.
I don't think what we're looking for here is to stop giving grants or concessional financing to women-led businesses. I think we're looking to understand, why is it that a woman founder is looked at as less dependable or viable as a business owner and as a revenue producer, when we do know that the outcomes, the business case for investing in women founders, very strong. Yeah. And maybe one of you could summarize what is that business case? What are some of the numbers that you like to quote when demonstrating that investing in women is actually as strong, if not stronger, a route to a return on investment than their male counterparts?
I mean, I don't have a particular statistic to quote, but it's just from my experience. We've had 2 cohorts of women-led or owned businesses in our healthcare portfolio, and we noticed that at least 90% can run their businesses without grants and without external financial support. So external financial support will help with scale, which usually they don't easily get because of, as per the venture capital report, I don't know when it came out, but apparently only 2% of that funding goes to female founders. And it's because they walk into rooms and the investment committee is made up of male panelists, right? And so already when they are presenting, they are asked questions that are like, okay, what are you going to do not to fail? And not that, how are you going to use $1 million if we give it to you? So it's something that, has been widely documented. And so to me, that in itself is a sign, right? Because when they will come and pitch to you and give you the most realistic picture, it is seen as you're not ambitious enough. But then when someone sells you hype and they're telling you about this unicorn, it's like they are dreaming even better. And so they're given more money. So it's a very interesting dynamic that I see, even when I see women present the difference between how a male would present something that doesn't really exist versus a woman, how they will present something that actually exists and has a lot of impact. So, yes, a lot of optics.
There's something that I would like to add. There's something they refer to as investor readiness. So you realize businesses, SMEs, they have always to reinvent themselves on every time they're engaging an investor. So because they need to meet a certain threshold, they need to have some certain documents. Actually, recently there is a couple of documents that myself have been working on with support from AGRA through Fine Strides. And you really, there are so many piles of documents that you need to have for you to at least now start engaging with the, how do I call them?
Investors or VC venture?
Yes, the venture capitals. And some of these documents, they're very complicated, especially for us when young entrepreneurs, when you engage. Yes, because for me, I started the Vermi-Farm initiative when I was in my second year at the university. Right now, you can imagine at that particular point of time, if I did get the financing that gave me flexibility to just work around the product design and the development, and I was exposed to the VC engagements. I think for young entrepreneurs, when it comes to such, we need to have a standardized kind of model of engagement depending on the company sizes, because different companies, they have different needs and they also have different exposure.
So inclusive businesses are 63% more likely to outperform on profitability and productivity than those that are not inclusive.
And can you define that? What do you mean by inclusive businesses?
So that means essentially not only that there's a gender balance team, but there are meaningful practices that enable people of all backgrounds and different characteristics to participate fully and meaningfully within that work. In some ways, it's also a bit of a no-brainer that when you understand that women are 50% of a consumer base and you design and market products effectively that meet and serve those needs, like that's also enables you to tap into a market opportunity, for example. And when you don't exclude 50% of the talent pipeline, which are women, and find ways to effectively reach them where they are with economic opportunities, then that's a powerful way to get the top talent within your business.
Mm-hmm. But is there also and I'm talking about the now, is there also the concern that having open conversations about inclusion, about gender roles, about gender being an issue to be considered is there's fatigue around that, or there is, again, this backlash that I'm really worried about, and I wonder, does that change the context in which the openness of these conversations can be held? Is there pressure to take women out of the name or the mission because you are seeing more doors closed than open?
For me, allow me to just be honest from the data that we have.
Please.
And from a practical point of view, from the programs that we run, over 87% of our beneficiaries, they are women. When I look from a village bank point of view, we call them village banks. Mm-hmm. Women are the key leaders in these village banks. They act as our village champions, and they are the people at the front line to translate our technologies, products, and services to the level of understanding of the smallholder farmer. Mm-hmm. And what has happened, they have been able to create alternative markets for us, because every time we're engaging them for a training, you realize we are not just talking about financial literacy. We are not just talking about how they can be able to adapt to impact of climate change, how they can be able to fight pests and diseases. We are also introducing them to regenerative agriculture and inputs. And once they see the results, they're able to share the word with other members within the community. And as a result, we get calls about supplying our inputs to these communities. So I'm looking at it from that point of view, trusting women as part of our value chain.
Trust women, absolutely.
Yes.
Just thinking, like, if you're talking about translating the vocabulary around gender equality, like, again, here's the business case. It's about creating markets and market access. And I think that's goes beyond just looking at gender equality and is a language that more people can accept and understand as well in this context of backlash.
Great.
Yeah. And also, I was thinking when you were saying about this fatigue, about talking women, I mean, it's because it takes a lot to fix systemic issues that actually lead to that. And yes, I have been in rooms where it now feels like a shameful thing. Mm-hmm. And of course, if men are not on the table, then it's just a fight that is not also moving anywhere, right? Because it should be something that we talk about openly. But I've also been in conversation where that's no longer an issue right now. It's like, oh, okay, we're just going to look at this impact numbers, this, and all these traction numbers, revenue numbers, and not really care about what that means in terms of inclusion. And so there's that effect, but I really don't think people should stop talking about it. It just takes a lot of energy to get to where things are. And if it stops, then it entirely stops and go back to Zero. And zero is not good. We were barely at 50.
Well, so maybe as our last question, I'll ask you, what are some sparks of hope or some green shoots that you're seeing in this context of ensuring women's economic opportunity in the context of shrinking ODA budgets and also a global backlash against gender equality as a norm to be protected through our multilateral institutions?
I think for me, necessity is the mother of invention, right? There'll be hiccups, especially with the reducing ODA in the continent, but that only might lead to us becoming more resilient as women founders, as male founders, or reinvent ourselves, which I think will happen. So it's a necessary move. It will not be painless, but I think the hope is that out of that, we will have more resilient business models, which are sustainable, grounded in that financial sustainability. And so it will not be painless. But I think there's a lot of hope in the direction because there are a lot of innovations in health. There's a lot of them that are coming up that are just trying to solve how can we get microinsurance for people so that they can still access healthcare regardless of, the crushing USAID funding. So I see a lot of resilience. And to me, that's the streak of hope.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think we were working in a system that's already broken. So this is a moment to potentially explore other systems. And I think this emerging conversation around localization and who is creating the solutions for whom, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of sparks of hope in seeing that increasing push to have solutions come from and for local communities.
Resilience is the world, just as was said. But then, for the case of the Vermi-Farm, what we've been able to do is to rethink access to finance and also the sustainability of the business. And I'll give a case, for instance, decentralizing access to finance for the smallholder farmers through our village banks is one of the good cases for us that we can draw inspiration from. Because even if one village bank fails, the rest can still sustain themselves because the smallholder farmers themselves are the ones who are running this. When you look at the Vermi-Farm Side's insurance cover for the smallholder farmers, we are using satellite imagery, weather data, and community verified data that is verified by the smallholder farmers by themselves. And once a premium is supposed to, once in case of a payment, payout, the funds, they come from the local community pool of funds. And every time that now maybe we're having an investor, some more funds into the organization, it's not just about strengthening the village bank, it's about scaling our businesses. So that is one of the key, I think, things that we've been able to achieve this year for us, even as there is scaling down in terms of access to finance from the global.
I wondered if there were any stories that you wanted to share from your portfolio, or like how you've maybe potentially like a specific woman entrepreneur who had struggled to access finance elsewhere and then found your program, or just curious.
Yeah, I mean, the common one is from Naum, a founder called Naum from Benacare. I don't know if you've met her.
I met her.
Probably, yeah. So we did a frontline healthcare workers call back then in 2020, and we were very intentional. You have to be intentional. So we were very intentional that out of the 3 companies that we were going to select, one had to be women-owned. Otherwise, it would have just been all male. So anyway, that's besides the point. And so she joined us in, I think, either 2022. And back then she had just been in one other program. And so she was still trying to fundraise, trying to get investor ready. And through the program, she was able to now access further funding. And she's now bigger and better. She's doing mobile dialysis in Murang'a County. And that's something that the government would wouldn't be able to do because of the capital needs that is required. However, it is very impactful to those people because the area is disproportionately affected by kidney disease. And so many people would either walk many, many kilometers to get to the county referral hospital, but now she's actually able to go to a place where they can easily come. And so you can imagine the consequences of someone just thinking about, oh my God, I have to walk, I don't know how many kilometers to go to the facility. I can just, stay home and God forbid, die, right? And so it's impactful models like that don't even need the patient to pay out of pocket, but it's reaching the patients, right? Because the government can still pay for these patients through the National Health Insurance Fund. And then the recent one that we are having right now is a woman who's doing laparoscopy for mostly women, so this is her story. She had an issue when she was pregnant, and she decided to go to the hospital. And in the hospital, they were like, no, you have an ectopic pregnancy, so we have to open you up. They open her up, and they find out that she's fine. The baby is fine. And then they had to sew her up again. Can you imagine? And so from that, she was able to create this solution that actually ensures that you don't need to be opened up for such things. And it's such a simple solution, but you can imagine there are a number of women who have either gone through that. And it's not just the ones with ectopic pregnancy. It's pelvic pain. It's fibroids. And let me tell you, I don't need to tell you. I don't need to tell you how bad that is. But she took that and created a business out of it. And she's running this women's clinic that is able to also do free laparoscopic surgeries. Please tell me if you can't support such a woman who's doing such things. And it's so impactful because it ensures that we can continue hustling and we can continue bringing food to the table without being in pain. And to me, that's real impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it just underscores that the most disruptive innovations that do manage to scale and have the greatest impact are the ones that come from A, personal experience.
Yep.
And B, or, motivated by personal experience, and B, that start on the margins and then move their way into the mainstream.
Yeah.
So if we're only looking at the mainstream and deciding that that's where our next future solutions will be, then we are missing a trick. And so that is the question that I think we'll end on for our listeners and our viewers and for ourselves as we go off into the rest of our day is, will these innovations that we are seeing as sparks of hope be enough to disrupt this global trend that has us scratching our heads, wondering if progressive norms and gender equality is in our future? So thank you very much. I want to thank also the entire Villgro team, especially Moses, who is our typical host, whose shoes are big shoes to fill as I try to be approximate guest host for our conversation about gender equality and women's economic opportunity. And thank you to each of you for being here and for sharing in this conversation. I look forward to the next time we can be together.
Thank you so much for hosting.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great.